Hello and welcome back. I've done a great deal of trying to put things away, so I've cleared the railway a little bit, especially the 2-rail stuff. The 3-rail has largely stayed exactly where it was, so that's eaten up quite a bit of time. And I had it in mind for a long time that I wanted to have a look at that TC Tank Locomotive that got the Train Collector Society show last November. And if you remember when we looked at it, it did run, so I got it out of the sort of temporary box that it's been stored in, which is sort of hanging. I'll put it out of the way now. We'll have a look at that later. Got it out to run it, and it's well, the motor runs, but it's interfering with the bodywork. I don't know whether you remember when we looked at it back in there. Let's grab something else to point with here. That the tanks have been cut away due to the severe distortion in this acetate model to allow the valve gear to rotate. I think possibly that the acetate has been up to what acetate does and shifts again, because let's see if we can get this to do it. I'm not going to do it too much there. So the valve or the connection rods on the other side, let's just turn this around now and we can just have a quick look. So this is all very scientific here, but there you can see under there we'll grab that. So this detailing here on this rod, which pushes along here, is just making contact with the bodywork there. Now I could shave more bodywork off, but I don't really want to shave much more off than that. So my idea was I could turn those rods over and put them on the other sides. I think that might work, so I might give that a go. Or I could, so it's that part there, I could file that away and work that down, so we've got a set of custom rods which will make that work. So I think any more shrinkage, we should be in good shape with it. That's my plan anyway. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to whip the top off this now, and we'll see that the chassis works. I do think it needs a bit of a clean. I think I said at the time it could benefit from a bit of a clean, and I have run it in the last day or so, and I think the motor could also do with a magnetising, because it tends to run a little bit on the warm side. I needed both hands there for that, but I think rather than just transfer at the bench at the moment, we'll just stick with this side, and we'll just pop that down there. We'll just pop that on the rails and we'll have a quick look at it running. Sorry, I'm pointing the camera down at the floor there, and I'm watching what I'm doing and not quite pointing the camera in the wrong place. So there we go, we should be in business now. So if we give this a little power, so it does run quite nicely. So that's just getting a little tighter there. But I think that would benefit from not only oiling, but remagnetising, because it is running a little bit on the warm side. I haven't put a meter on it, but there's a fair chance that if that's just laid around like that for many, many years, that this is probably going to have, there's barely any, it's not very good. We'll improve that. So let's just whip that off there for a moment, and I think that is definitely a Princess, the front bogie for Princess repurposed. Probably got the right angled piece of metal, articulated arm there, to get it back into the right place, get the truck into the right place. The screws are a bit sort of overkill perhaps, but it sort of does the job. Although, let's just put this back on here again and have a look. Here we go. Got that. See this large bolt there. Get very, very close when we get a curvature on there. Let's see that. See how very, very close that gets to the end of the chassis there. So I think even if we were going to live with that, we'd probably want to trim that to get the best use out of it. But I think once magnetised and cleaned and lubricated, that chassis is going to run really, really nicely. So this is the one I pulled out in that earlier video from the box of bits I've got whilst it's it's the right sort of casting. It's got the wrong sort of arm on there, so I think I'm going to take the rivet out of there, and we'll use that arm, and we'll combine it together with a slightly better nut and bolt arrangement. I think we'll just pinch the same wheels. I suspect this would have had earlier wheels with sort of less spokes in them at the time, so I don't think that this was this probably wasn't the original chassis for this particular body one. If you have a look, we'll get this under the camera. We'll have on the bench. We'll have a better look at it. We can see that really extreme distortion. We've got Tri-ang, and we've got R.56 there. Come on, grab focus there. See how incredibly shiny that is. And we've got that gorgeous little sticker there. I don't know whether I can get focus there. So if I can't get focus there, we'll get a photograph of that in the corner of the screen so you can see it. It's tucked away right down there. So that's upside down now, I know, but I seem to be able to get the camera in there really quite nicely. So I've just swapped those rods around so they're effectively upside down, and I think we've pretty much solved the problem. So half of me now is thinking, well, I don't really need to go to the effort of filing those down. I think once underway, at arm's length, we're not going to really know. I know we know because we've done it, but you know, it seems like it might be nice just to leave the rods as they are in original condition rather than take any more material away. I don't know, I'll have a think about it. I had thought I might I've got some fairly poor condition fluted ones which might do the job. We'll see. I could have an experiment with those, but for now I'm quite pleased with that. But it's amazing how much that acetate has shifted just since November. Let's give that a little power. And then we'll run back again. I think once we've magnetised that and cleaned that up, that'll be a much smoother runner. Definitely a nice sort of rasp coming from the motor. And we'll get that sorted. And my plan had been to run it with these sort of bright silver Transcontinental coaches. These are a paint finish, although I've forgotten to look the numbers up for those. We'll just have a look at the number for the locomotive for a second. So that's R56. It's coming along in the UK catalogue 1955. Available in black till 1960, and then for a brief period there was a maroon version available. I believe these were made in other markets, so they may have been available for different periods of time. I think there was a version available without the additional valve gear, just plain rods, and I think there were smoking versions as well. Long securing screw there, slightly got quite a deep head on it there, isn't it? It's the thread where that would go into the chassis. Let's just pop that down. I think I mentioned when I first showed this model back in November that it's got a slight crack that would appear to have been mended in the past. Can we see it from the back there? See the slight stress crack in the plastic there. I think that's got a bit of glue running through it, so we'll leave well alone there. I think I might just take a little bit off the metalwork on the chassis at the front, just so it's a slightly easier fit in there. We've got the R.56 there. It's incredibly shiny, isn't it? And then we've got Tri-ang there. Let's see if we can see that distortion along the bodywork there. Quite severe, isn't it? You see how that's been sculpted out to accommodate the connection rods or valve gear in the past, but I think it's continued to shift as these things probably do. So it really has sort of pinched in, hasn't it? I don't know whether we're going to get any better in there this time. I'll put in a still picture there up large in the screen if I can make it work. If not, we'll just continue with that. But let's have a look down the side there. When I first showed this, I thought that these might be reproductions, but looking at them now, I think they're probably originals. You've got that lovely sort of bend, that distortion across there, and that metal sort of safety valve or whistle type thing there is definitely a later addition. It should have a plastic part on it like that. And again, that whistle in the centre of the cab there, and that's what attracted me to this model, because most of mine, I have a couple of other variants of this one, especially I've got a maroon one which we'll look at another day, and that's long gone. So replacement lamps can be had quite easily. I think there's a number of people selling 3D printed versions of those. So an obvious upgrade would be an LED in those, but I think that's possibly not for an acetate model, I don't think. So let's just pop that down to one side in a place of safety, and we'll get that back. And again, I'm not going to over clean that. Just pop that over there. So I've whipped off the chassis. Let's have a look in there. So we had a quick look over there. So I'm just going to ease off a little bit at the front there, so it's not shrinking down into that plastic work. And I did, since I filmed that earlier part, I came up with, if you look in the insert picture there, you'll see some, I'm having trouble getting these around the right way. So these are very sort of scaly. They're past their best. So I have, let's put the chassis down before I drop that. I have begun to work. I've taken away that bit of detail off the top there. I think we'll just have these just for this locomotive, and we'll keep the originals on it, but I don't think there's too much plating left on these. It's very, very rough. So they're going to need a little bit of cleaning up. I've already started to clean that one. That was very, very scaly on there. So I think that's going to be quite nice getting those in there. Again, that's all rough along the back there. So these have seen a bit of action. I don't think they're a matched pair. They're very similar. I think when you look closely at these things, there are slight differences. The rivet which goes through there is slightly different. And they're a fraction different on the lengths. I mean, just a fraction. Of course, later ones were fluted. So we pop that down there. I think we'll whip off the rear truck here. So get that. So not looking what we're doing there. There we go. So we'll see if we can release that. There we go. I think for good measure, we'll take off the front one as well. So we're going to give this thing a good old clean. I'm not going to do all of this on camera. We'll just do some various bits and we'll come back to it. There we go. Let's just pop that down there. Take the little screw out of there. So I think that one and that are the same thing. I'm gonna remove that arm there, and we'll use this. Ideally, it's going to come into focus now. It will one day. So I'm hoping that will fit on there. If it's not, we'll have to come up with another way of securing that. So I'll go ahead and I'll whip the wheels off this, get that off there, and we'll undo that. With the following day now, I've got those rods changed around. We'll have a look in a moment once we stop it. I've had the motor off, cleaned it and remagnetized it, so we should have plenty more reliability out of that now, and I'm hoping it won't run so warm. So I'm just going to turn this off so we've got a bit better sound, because it's quite echoey here on the workbench. Let's just take the power off there. There we go. We'll have a quick look over it. And if you have a look in there, you can see those rods where I've just filed away that detailed part there. So let's turn that around and have a look on the other side as well. Clean the wheels up. They've come really, really nicely. I think it'll do the job. I mean, they're quite a sort of a crusty pair of rods, really, but they seem to work. They're not really suffering. Let's pop that down there. And then that's the original truck that came off the model, although probably not the original one that was on the model from factory, given the wheels a clean up. axles and so on. Haven't got any oil on those. I've oiled or provisionally oiled the chassis and motor there, so they've all come up quite nicely. And then this is the one that needed the mild surgery on it. So I took off its original sort of articulated arm there, and I swapped it over for the one that was on the other truck, giving the wheels a bit of a clean and the axles. I'll dull down that brass screw before we get the whole thing together, so it's not quite so obvious. So I'm hoping that's going to do the trick quite nicely. So let's just have a look at the leftover parts. So that was the original one on there. These are the rods. So I'll keep those with the locomotive should I want to put them back or reunite them with this particular chassis. So they'll live to play another day probably. So that's the Princess truck that was on there to start with. So we'll just leave that alone. I'm sure that's going to come in handy for something. And there's the various screw and washer and some custom spacers being made in there. There's the original rivet. There we go. That rivet held that to that, so I just had to use a twist drill to take that off there. So the nut and bolt is just 8BA. Just use one of those, but we'll get that dulled down so it doesn't stand out too much. So I've just been giving the chassis a bit of a test on the rails. It's performing reasonably well. Slight hesitations and so on in the usual sort of places on points and things like that. But the truck seems to be doing the business. It's not sort of coming off. So we'll just take that back around, and you can see I've dulled down that brass screw there, so that's not going to sort of grab the eye. And I forgot to mention I did take off a little bit of metal on the front there, and I've also dulled those down, so that makes it a bit of an easier fit on that cellulose acetate body. So we'll get that to run back around the railway. Let's see if we can bring it to a stop nearer the catalogue. There we go. We just put the controls down for a moment. So I also forgot to mention that we have remagnetized it, so that's we're getting much more stick now. So that's very reassuring. So that should ensure the motor stays healthy. I can't get the screwdriver off here now. Let's write that back on the rails, although I am going to put the bodywork back on it now. Let's just leave that there and there. And have a look at the coaches here in the catalogue. So these bright silver coaches, so that's the observation car. These came along 1970 to 73. So the observation cars is R4410. And then we've got the coach, which was R4400. I'm looking at my notes, they're all jumbled up. And then we've got the diner, R4430, all sort of 70 to 73. I've got another coach over there. We'll get those on the rails. We'll have a quick look over the condition of them in a moment. The catalogue here, this is the 72. With 72? Yeah, 72 catalogue. And I think these coaches only appeared in 2 sets. So this one here for the UK, I think the Overlander RS 101A, and I think there was a 101 possibly produced for Australia that featured these coaches as well. So let's have a look at the observation car. So the earlier TC coaches, if you have a look in the insert picture there, you'll see that the red band ran through the windows, and they were a self-coloured plastic, sort of grey silver colour. And they weren't finished off in this bright silver paint, which I think is quite fragile, this paint. So they do look absolutely terrific, but they mark so very, very easily. So that I don't think they would stand up to a great deal of playtime, these. So let's have a look at the wheels and so on there. We've got Tri-ang on the bottom. So let's have a look at the coach. Let's have a look at let's look at this one. This one's a slightly poorer condition than that one. These didn't all come to me in the one go, so they came at different times. So I think that one's got the chip through the paint there. Or possibly that's where it came off the sprue. I don't know when it was moulded. So not bad. They are quite rattly once they're on the rails. And then we've got the dyno. And you can see this one's had an awful lot of play time, hasn't it? The roof's been handled quite a lot. So I'll just give those numbers again. The dyno R4430. And then the coach R4400. And the observation car R4410. I've set up all the coaches there, and we've got them standing in the station. And I've got the tank locomotive over here, just waiting to go onto the turntable and turn around. So we'll give that some power. Got the Princess here. I'm leaving that out on the railway for a little bit. I'm hoping to get the sleeper coaches set up to make a train up with that. So that's the plan there. Let's give this some power now. And then we'll turn that around. And then let's take that off the turntable. So I'm just going to put down the control. There's something whistling down the street there. Very, very noisy. I don't know whether that picked up on the microphone or not. So let's straighten that. I remember when I was a child, there was Volvos used to whistle as they drove through the air, didn't they? For something about the design of the front end of them. There seemed to be quite a few of them made a whistle. So that was back in the mid-1970s. You could hear them before you could see them. A little bit like police cars. So there we go. So let's see if we can trundle round and collect those coaches. That terrific distortion in there. So we just take down the power a little bit there. I think we've got that. See if we can go right the way back here and get the whole train in. They are very, very shiny, aren't they? So we'll just let that trundle around a little. I'm just going to pop the controls down. See if I'm going to get out in front of it, I think. Look through the windows of those coaches. Ideally, we'll get the tail end of that observation car. Great piece of design, that. All those windows on the top. It only just fits under my elevated section as well, I've only just noticed. Let's just take a little power off that. We'll just come in tight on that locomotive one more time around, and I think perhaps we'll get this onto the outside line for one final run around. Again, we'll just have a look at those coaches as they go by. Yeah, terrific thing. They really catch the light, they really go very, very bright. The earlier ones are not quite as shiny as that. They don't have that effect. So in playing with this earlier, I discovered that they don't like the crossover, those coaches. Locomotive, no problem at all. So I've decided to use the long crossover to get it from one line to the other. So I'll open this one to start with. So we'll go curved there. And then let me get the one at this end here. So we'll go straight with that one. Actually, I haven't tried the other crossover, but there's quite a few curves in that as well. But the coaches just don't like that change of direction. I think it's got more to do with coming off this curve here and then straight into there. But there was quite a sort of collision, not collision, a crumpling of the coaches, shall we say, as we came through there when I was playing with it earlier. So let's give that some power now. And see if we can transfer sensibly from one line to the other. Try and change the view. I'm just going to put the controls down here for a second. No magnetization in this model. Too early for that. There we go. So once that's all the way through, I'll just stop and close the point there behind it. Well, also close the one on the inner line because I'm bound to forget that for later on. So we'll go straight on that one. And just while we're at it, we'll just do this one here. So we'll make that one go curved. I think we'll just finish off with a run around this outer line. So we'll go for some power. I'm just going to put the controls down. I know I'm going to trip over that cable in a moment. Makes a lovely sound, that those solid wheels on the rails. So just a lovely sort of trundling sound is the best way of describing that. I've forgotten to close a point. I didn't think I had forgotten to close a point. I haven't forgotten to close a point, I don't think. Let's see if I can deal with that without putting the camera down. When I was looking over that previous footage, it becomes quite obvious when you're looking at it that the coaches are quite unhappy on a lot of the point work, and they can be quite lumpy and bumpy, especially coming through the crossovers. So I got these earlier ones out. These are from the early 60s. So they're not a paint finish. Perhaps I should have got these ones out to start with on this Series 3 track. And they are far better behaved. Let's just come in over the top and have a look here. So I'll grab the controls in a moment. Let's just let that trundle off there into the distance. Reach over my left shoulder here and we'll grab the controls. So let's just pull this around here and we'll have a gentle stop. Let's get that there. There we go. So these are from the early 60s. I think these are available sort of 62, 63-ish in this livery. The baggage car there, 442. And then we've got the coach. So we're R440. And then we've got the diner. And that's R443. And sadly, we've left the observation car sitting under the elevator track there. Let's just roll that forward. There we go. The observation car. So that's our 441. You can see they're not as shiny as the other ones. These are just self-coloured plastic, and I think they're quite nice. I quite like the bright ones. I thought they were quite nice with the tank locomotive here. Let's just run that around again, and we'll change some points and these are just really nicely behaved to the points as well, so no issues with crossovers. So I'm going to have to stop that there. I'm going to have to turn around. I've got the there we go. I had the cables hooked onto the edge of that box. I couldn't make it turn around. So let's run that around again. And bring this into the station. So 3 of these coaches have sleeved wheels. So they open and close, so they alter their back to back. But the bright silver ones have pinpoint axles, and the back to backs were fixed. Let's change this. So we want to go curved there. Let's just spin around here, and that one I've already changed there. That one I've already changed, so I just need to do this green one, the one with it over here. So we'll just make that curved. So this comes through all of the point work. Those other coaches just wouldn't. They'd just climb out of it. So let's grab the controls. I should have moved that pad really. It's a little bit on the bright side sitting there. Over the diamond. And let's just stop that there for a moment. You can see the difference in the coaches. So we've got the later Transcontinental coaches here. You can see the red band is above the windows there. And it runs through the windows. Well, the windows run through the red band on these ones. Still got this really beautiful sort of observation section there. So let's let that run a bit more. Just thought it was worth showing. It was nagging at me when I was looking at the. We're suddenly on a dead spot here. Let's see if we can encourage this to move. Let's try that again. And then through. Must have been just on that special point there where it didn't want to go. So let's let that trundle around again. And then we'll just whip a couple of these coaches off and have a quick look. So 3 of these, I think I already said, have sleeved wheels, and 1 of them has earlier pinpoints, but the back-to-back is significantly different. I would say by an entire millimetre. So I think let's just stop that there. We'll switch that point there and we'll bring this round. Let's see if we can have a look there. Make that straight. And we'll bring that further around. There's a bit more friction with these, with it being sort of pretty much all sleeved wheels. So I'm going to stop there and move my pad, otherwise we're going to get into trouble here. So I'm keeping that out because it's got. Actually, I don't need it anymore because we've had sort of dates and numbers there, haven't we, on these coaches? So they do have 3 of them have boxes, and the observation car, sadly, no box. You can have a look at the insert picture there. You can see them with their boxes. So let's pull that off there. So I'm just going to grab this other observation car here. We'll have a look at the wheels on this one. Let's see if we can put that down there. Actually, let's put it that way. And let's get the uncoupler here. We'll uncouple another one as well. Here we go. So this is one of the ones with with the sleeved wheels, so we'll see what the difference is like. So is that going to stay there? Yeah. And then we've got the other observation here. Let's put that down here. So these are the ones from the early 70s, and they're much finer scale wheels. And you look at these ones from there. These are going to be sort of early mid 60s. They're much deeper. So I can't balance this in there with the one hand, but that's the back-to-back measurement on the earlier coaches. So when we get that in there, we've got a whole millimetre of free movement, so I can go side to side through there. So it's very difficult with the one hand, but yeah. So back to back is subjective. Sometimes you can't say it must be that way, it must be that, or and so on, because the thickness of the flange as well has something to play in it. We can clearly see the wheel spacing. The back to back on there is much narrower on there, and that certainly suits this type of point work. It prevents them from climbing out. So I suppose these coaches were geared up for the System 6 when they were designed to come along. But these are the very early ones, and they've got sleeved wheels, so these sort of open and close. If you have a look in there, you can see, am I going to get focus there? I don't think I can get. Can I get any focus in there? So you're getting sort of opening and closing. Let's pick this one up and come over here. So if I look in there, you can see the axle through there, can't you? So they sort of open and close nice and freely, and they sort of accommodate when they're crashing through these very crude points. So it's amazing what will run on these crude points. We've got those Coronation Scott coaches with very fine scale metal wheels on. Sail round these. I think if we're looking at early videos, they run round with really no issue whatsoever. Yeah, these or those, a different story. Anyway, we'll keep those for another day. I'm going to put this back on, and we'll just let that start running again, and I think we'll probably call that a day here. So the video is now running on a little bit longer than I had anticipated, but it was just nagging me when I was looking over that footage. So I can't remember, we've got all the point work. No, we've got one left over there that needs to change. So let's get that one straight. There we go. And we'll just set that off running again. Get the controls over my shoulder here. So I'm getting really tangled up with the controls here. But I think that's probably it for this time. If you look back again, next time we'll see if we can have something else interesting to look at. Goodbye now.